Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am here ready to talk about WriteShop today. I'm looking forward to answering any questions. So, whether you're watching this live or you're watching it on replay, please feel free to leave any questions and I will come back and I can answer them for you. All right, so let's get started. So last year, a lot of you know that I chose WriteShop Junior to use with my sixth grader. So this year, it just made a lot of sense to go ahead and look at WriteShop I now that he's in seventh grade. Um, we had such a great year with WriteShop, so that's why, of course, it made sense to go ahead and take a look at that. So we did, and we're going to go with WriteShop I for his seventh and eighth grade year. Now, when you purchase the WriteShop set, you will notice that the teacher's guide actually is the teacher's guide for WriteShop I and II. So if you continue into WriteShop II, you already have the teacher's guide, and all you would need is an additional student workbook. The student workbook is actually only for WriteShop I, and that's what we're going for this year. Now, it didn't come in this binder. I actually put it in this binder, so it does come all pre-printed, and you can just slip it into a binder. So I just grabbed one in the house, and that's what we've got. So I am going to do WriteShop I over 2 years, seventh and eighth grade, but when we get down into the flexible planning, I will tell you more about exactly how we're going to do that. But I want to start um, with some of the reasons that we loved WriteShop last year, why we chose it this year, and I think it's going to work well for us, again, as a family. First, clear directions for me. The teacher's guide is full of very helpful directions, resources, and support for me. Not only is there directions for each individual lesson, but you'll find at the front of the teacher's guide an entire section that just kind of explains the philosophy of WriteShop and writing, takes you through the writing process. Of course, I taught fifth grade for 2 years before moving to middle school math, so I have taught writing. I own a blog. I am a writer in many ways. I'm used to expressing myself with words. So for me, I feel fairly comfortable with the writing process and a bit about teaching writing. But I know for a lot of people, just being able to take some time before you embark on teaching writing to read the philosophy, to read how it's going to work, everything is in there. And then again, for every single lesson, they walk you through how to teach this particular skill builder, how to go through the writing process. So you have plenty of help and support. Of course, if you know me, I'm always tweaking things, I'm doing things my way, I'm changing it up a little, but I like to do that from a place where it's already been created for me. Like someone kind of hands me the box and I have no problem playing around with it. And what I love about WriteShop is they actually encourage that. Like in the teacher's guide, it will say things like doing what's best for you. So it's that reminder, especially if you're someone who's a little more hesitant to change things up, you're going to get that encouragement and support to do what is best for you and your child. So I just love all the support that is in there for me. In addition to some of the help with the teaching and the concept of how to teach writing, you're actually going to find also rubrics to score your child. And in here, there's an entire section to talk to you about editing, like an introduction to editing. How does editing work? How not to get overwhelmed? How to use the teacher checklist? So again, you have all the support that you need, probably more than some people need. But you know, I would always rather more and I can back off than to be staring at something and think, how am I going to use this? Like, how is this going to work at my house? So I prefer having that kind of support. And you're definitely going to get it there with WriteShop. Here in level one, I'm still seeing plenty of it. Okay, one of my other favorite parts of WriteShop last year that continues into WriteShop I is the writing skill builders. Every lesson, you're also teaching your child like a writing tool that they can use in their writing. So this is things like, I wrote down a few, paired adjectives, how to kind of use those in your writing, a topic sentence, how to write a good one, not one that's, you see kids write like, I'm going to tell you about mountains. No, we're not going to do any of that. How to write a good one. So these are things that they need practice with, and it's going to be built into the lessons. In fact, in the teacher's guide, it tells you each lesson that you're teaching and tells you the paired skill builder that will go with that lesson. So if you're going to do like I'm going to do, which I'm going to share in a little bit, and pick and choose some lessons for this year, because I'm going to do WriteShop 1 over 2 years. If there's a particular writing skill that I want my child to practice, then I can choose that lesson that goes with it. I actually, they're in here so I can show you. Yeah, here you go. The scope and sequence is right there. So you have what you're teaching, and then what type of writing it is, and then you have your skill builders. So paired adjectives, as I said, choosing appropriate titles, using similes, using ly adjectives. And here's the thing with the skill builders, okay? When you're teaching them, the first time, maybe even the second or third time, when you're encouraging your child to put these tools in their writing, it can feel a little awkward and forced. And that's why, actually, with my first child through, I was a little resistant to that because I didn't want their writing to feel that way. But here's the thing, this is what I have learned: to make those tools a natural part of their writing, sometimes they have to feel a little awkward and forced. They've got to practice it. They've got to be told, hey, put this in your writing, try it, play with it. Because once you master these tools, once you've played with them, you've seen what works, what didn't work, and you've been forced, then they become part of your repertoire. And then you can use them without someone telling you. You kind of spot it and you're like, oh, I could put this in here. And I remember very distinctly, I'm going to tell you a little story. My daughter was in a writing class in high school, and it was a great writing class. It was definitely helping her to expand her writing and to dig a little deeper in her topics. But one thing that stuck out to me is at the end of the writing class, she could see what other kids were writing as well. And she was like, how did they learn to write like that? Because their writing was advanced. It incorporated a lot of these different tools just naturally. They used great vocabulary. They used strong verbs and all, and paired adjectives and good topic sentences. And I don't know, maybe that kid just naturally learned how to do that, but that wasn't happening for my child. They definitely needed someone to tell them, hey, this is one way to improve your writing. This is a very specific way. And she wasn't getting that in these particular writing classes. And it was something that she definitely needed. So I knew for my other kids, I wanted to change that and start a little earlier with giving them tools, forcing, pressuring, pushing a little to use them so that they would become part of their writing toolbox. So for me, I really love that about WriteShop, is that that's laid out, because even though I taught writing in fifth grade for 2 years, that was 18 years ago. That was even more than 18 years ago, because that was when I first started teaching. It's been a long time. I don't know all the skill builders. I don't know all the tools that I can put in their toolbox. And it was driving me crazy going and finding resources that would help me with that. So I just love that this is still part of the level 1 and 2 curriculum, and that I'm not having to go and find those things to bring to the writing program, but it's all part of it. So you're going to get the skill builders again. All right, the next thing, and I've mentioned several times the plans, is you're going to get flexible plans. Now, when I say flexible plans, the plans are laid out for you. It's, sorry, I flipped past them. I need to go back. It tells you exactly how to lay out a 2-week plan for WriteShop, which is a very standard plan. Okay, so you know exactly what you're going to teach each day. It's 4 days a week of teaching and then a day off. Now, they, of course, have the day off as day 5. You can change that. I can tell you right away, Wednesdays are often our busy day because my 9th grader will be in a class downtown. I typically take him and I go just him and I, so that I can have a little break in our week. Then by the time I get home, we have a little more time before I'm sometimes teaching online and things are going on. Wednesday just tends to be a crazy day for us. So for me, I'm going to adjust that 2-week plan, and we're actually going to do some work on Friday, and I'm going to leave Wednesday, day 3, as the day off. The other thing I will consider doing, because it worked well for us last year, is maybe combining some of the days so we work 3 days. and then we have time to do other writing and other things on the other days. So again, they hand you a plan that then you can manipulate. And I appreciate that instead of me having to look at the lesson and figure out, how should I do this? How should I lay this out in my week? When I have something I can start with, then I can change it. So this is recommended for most students, the 2-week plan, and it will take them through the whole book in the year. I've told you my goal is actually not to get through the whole book in a year, which is mentioned and suggested in the guide that you can kind of play with this. They have a plan for finishing WriteShop 1 and 2 in a year, like doing both levels in 1 year. If you have an older student who's trying to catch up, or you have an advanced writer. But for me, since we're starting in 7th grade, my goal is to get through WriteShop 1 by the end of 8th grade. So I have 2 years to do that. So when I look at WriteShop 1 and I see the 2-week plan and there's 16 lessons, I'm actually going to make it my goal to do 7 or 8. 8 would be ideal because it would be halfway. But realistically, when I'm looking at our school year, it might just be 7. So I will use this 2-week plan, knowing I can kind of extend it a little if we want more time and do a 3rd week, because I'm going to take a week off in between each one. So again, the plan is there, it's handed to me, and then I can play with it to make it work for me. Now, I'll tell you how I am picking. So I'm going to go back into those lessons so you can see it. The way that the scope and sequence is laid out for WriteShop is there are 16 lessons. There's 30 total, so 16 this year, and then the remaining, I guess, 14 the next year. The units that you're going to go through in WriteShop 1 are descriptive writing, informative writing, and narrative writing. Now, if I were to say, okay, I'm going to do the lessons in order, then I would only get through descriptive writing this year because that is the first 7 lessons. Maybe if I got through 8, I would do 1 informative writing. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to change it up. What I'm going to do, and hope it works, I'm sure it will, is that I'm going to pick 4 of the descriptive writings. Oh, no, 3 of the descriptive writings, 2 of the informative writings, and 2 or 3 of the narrative writings to do this year. And then I'm going to go back next year and I'm going to do the other ones. That way my 7th grader is getting a little experience in all 3 types of writing this year, and then we'll go back. And if you're wondering, well, where are the essays and where are the persuasive writings and things? That's in WriteShop 2. That's where you'll get the persuasive writing, essays, timed writing, something important to practice in college. Yes, my daughter went off to college and there was timed writing in her English class. So not a bad idea to practice that. So that's how I'm going to break it down. So again, I love that all that information is there for me, and then I can pick and choose how we're going to do it. But that is my particular plan to use with my son this year, is I'm going to pick 7 to 8 lessons, but not in a row. Jump around a bit. Okay, the other thing I love about WriteShop is the helpful teacher resources. So we've talked about the plans and all the information they give you. There's even more. So in your teacher guide, you're going to find things like a section on positive comments to make when you're evaluating writing. Like literally a list of positive comments. I don't know about you, but like sometimes you start to sound like a record on repeat. Great job, good work, love this. Here, you're going to get a whole list so that you can say those things differently. First, just general positive comments like, you have a tremendous gift, you're continuing to grow in your writing skills. Then there is literally a section of positive comments on content, clearly presented. You have a lot of good ideas to work with. Then there's actually a section then on creativity and style so that you can narrow in on things your child is doing well. Like, I like the descriptive words you used, and list out some of the descriptive words that they used. What a colorful descriptive paragraph. You only used 1 to be word. Or, wow, I didn't find any of the verb to be. All of this is in here. It gives me great stuff to look for when I'm evaluating my child's writing, and just really great ways to say it for them. Okay, excellent, helpful teacher resource. You're also going to find a section of common problems. And another one I want to highlight is student writing samples. It can be difficult. The majority of people have never taught writing before. It's not something most people do. So to have a section with student writing samples so that you actually see what a child's writing might look like, or teens writing in this case. We're not talking about children. First, proofreading symbols. This is actually the symbols, that are generally standard that people use to mark up a page. They might be symbols that they'll run into again in college. It's great to learn some common proofreading symbols like capitalize, underline 3 times and start a new paragraph here and that kind of stuff. But then you're also going to get actual samples of student writing. And here's the best part. This is lesson 2, a student sample. But this is a sample of their first draft. So in addition to getting to see that, you're going to get to see the corrections, how you might correct a paper, how you might encourage them to change things up, to grow in their writing, to insert their skill builders. And if you're using the checklist, and I'm going to talk about these too, you get a comment, you get to see a sample checklist too. So you're actually getting to see the entire writing process all the way through the final copy. Seriously helpful for those of us who didn't teach it to be able to see someone go through every single lesson. You're going to get to see how, not every single lesson, I'm sorry, I'm saying every lesson, but it's not. It's several of them. So it jumps through, so you'll also see it for the narrative writing and for the different types of writing. So you're going to get a sample that you can watch go through the whole writing process. Brilliant, so helpful for you to be able to refer to. Okay, I also mentioned in there the scoring rubrics. You know what? I'm going to talk about them in the next section because we're about to move on to the last thing I love about WriteShop. Not only is there all this teacher support, is that there's a ton of student support. One of those things is the writing checklist. So for every lesson, when your student is done, they will have, I'm going to actually just take it out rather than try to hold this up. They will have a writing checklist. Did I do the things required of me for content, for style, mechanics, format, that kind of stuff? Um, and I was resistant to this kind of thing when my kids were younger, and I'm fine with that. They definitely didn't need this. But I've now sent a daughter off to college classes, and she took an English there. And guess what? She had format requirements. No, they didn't necessarily hand her a checklist, but it had to be an MLA. There's certain things. So we were basically going through our own checklist. What is required on MLA format and making sure she had it? What is required to be in this paper? There were things that the teacher wanted to see in the paper. We had to make sure she had them. She had to make sure she had them. So starting to introduce the concept of writing requirements and a checklist is not a bad thing. Will I use the checklist for every single thing that we do this year? No, I probably will not. But will I at least use it for some of them? Yes. And if I use it for all of them, I think that's going to be totally fine. It's not for me going to lead to a letter grade. There is something in here if you want to do composition evaluation and you want to give an actual letter grade, that's included for you, which is helpful. It's in the student packet. It's helpful for the student to see, how am I going to be graded? I will tell you, that was a little mysterious in college English. Exactly how am I going to be graded? Some professors are better about that than others. So you're actually saying to your student, this is exactly what I'm looking for, and this is exactly what it's worth. That's extremely helpful. Now, in general, for middle school, I don't actually grade. I'm not going to give a numeric or a letter value to a piece of writing. I would rather go through the writing process and just be able to enjoy with them the way their writing evolved from the first draft to the final copy and note all the great things they're doing. Now, again, you can use that checklist because that's just going to help. You might have a student who wants you to give them a score. Every household is different. And that's why I like all these options to support your student, where they are, what they need, and what you feel comfortable with in terms of helping them grow their writing and not feel discouraged. So I'm just being honest that for me, I probably will not score writing with a letter or numeric value in middle school. And I will wait until high school to do that, to start getting them ready for that idea. But the checklists are a great thing for me to start introducing this year so that they understand that, in academic writing settings, there's often requirements to have in there and you have to check for them. All right, what else is in here? I want to highlight one other section that's available for students because I love this section too as a writer myself. And that is there is an entire section of word lists in the back. Now the student book didn't come with the same like dividers that the teacher's guide did. So I would definitely pull out like a post-it note or your own divider and put it in there so that you can mark the word list section. But this is where you're going to find words for, um, how to say cold, how to say honest, how to say amazed or astonished, how to find it's like a thesaurus back there for the word neat, for the word proud. Some of the words tired that might get overused in student writing, they can look up more specific ways to say them and how to vary it. You're going to find emotion words, how to say sad, how to say happy. You're going to find a list of other ways to say said, she said, he said, they said. You know that word said is overused. And you know what? Here's the important thing to teach your kids. The word lists are not cheating. Professional writers use thesauruses, word lists. They get on the internet. They look up different ways to say things. It is not cheating to use a word list. It's good writing. So I love that we can train them that that's okay, that they can go and find words that they need and that they're right there in the back of their book. So those are some of the reasons that we are looking forward to using WriteShop again this year, and our kind of plan in general to do it. So if you still have other questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments here. I'd be happy to get to them, probably type out a reply. But I hope this was helpful to you. This is a program I definitely think has helped me become a good partner in writing with my son, and I'm looking forward to using it again. All right, everyone. Oh, I want to let you know, up in the description of this video, you'll find a link to the blog post where you can read more about our plan, and it kind of summarizes everything I went on today if you like to see it visually in writing. There's an affiliate link to the WriteShop website. If you just want to head right on over there and check it out, you'll find the scope and sequence. There's even a placement test over there. And the final thing you'll see up there is a coupon code that is good through August 7th of 2021. If you're watching this replay later, I'm sorry. You can check in with me and see if there's a current one, but it will get you free shipping on any order of $20 or more. My guess is that's just in the US, but if you're international, definitely check it out and you can see. All right, everyone, thanks for being here, and I hope it was helpful. Again, leave any questions that you might have. All right, have a great year or great planning time.